Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome back to Heroes of Might and Magic 2. I'm very excited to bring to you today the video on the portraits. This video is meant to be a companion to the sprite video that we did, where we examined all of the different sprite sheets that you found for the units that are in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and today we are taking a look at the heroes themselves. Worth noting that I'm hoping that we can delve into these portraits a little bit, that we can find maybe some secrets in the background, that maybe we can tie together a little bit of the lore that you have on these heroes from game to game and version to version. That is my hope, that's my goal, and I gotta tell you, I've tried to record this video once. It turned into 45 minutes. That's too long. I'm gonna try and get this down to about 20 minutes, and we're already a minute in. Oh my gosh, that means we gotta hurry. So, with no further ado, we're starting off here. This is Lord Kilburn the Knight. Heroes 1 portrait on the left, Heroes 2 on the right. This is the Game Boy version on the right. Far right. Anyway, you have to zoom very far out in order to actually tell what that portrait is. It looks like mashed potatoes. For a lot of these portraits, they look like mashed potatoes if you're not careful. Shading on Lord Kilburn here on the left is much softer in Heroes 2 than it was in Heroes 1. I think that this is an example of the artist taking a second pass at this portrait, and when you pull the shadows back, you tend to get a much softer face and maybe a little more nicer of a face here. This Lord Kilburn from Heroes 2 looks much more friendly than the Heroes of Might and Magic 1 Lord Kilburn did. Worth noting that of all the heroes that we cover in Heroes 1 and 2, Lord Kilburn has the most fleshed out lore of maybe any of these heroes, except for perhaps Crag, Hack, and Gem, because of course they have more lore. They are central to the Shadow of Death campaign in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, but Lord Kilburn, what can we tell about him? He likes to hang out on the beach. Clearly, he's got palm trees in the background. Maybe it's these exact two palm trees, one to the right, one to the left, one to the left, one to the right. But I can't say much more about that, except that he's very striking with his dark mustache, his jet black raven hair that's about shoulder length. And notice, as a knight, he does not have any armor. That is pretty interesting to me. On to Sir Gallant. Sir Gallant is a pretty fun fellow here for this reason. Look, he is cheesing and smiling in front of the camera, and what's he cheesing in front of? A newly captured barbarian castle. How do we know it's a barbarian castle? We'll just look here. This is the castle that we're looking at. I must tell you though, and this is very important, that if you are trying to figure out where exactly this is and where this lines up from Portcullis and so on and so forth, this is flipped. This is the correct way that the castle is supposed to be, I think. No, is it this way? I think it's this way. Hold on. Yeah, the castle is supposed to face with the portcullis to the left, as we're going to see in just a little bit. So this is the correct way. If you're going to try and find Sir Gallant and where he fits in, I think he fits in right about here, because this is the forward-facing deal here. Here's the one that's just kind of poking out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is the most correct way of figuring out where he fits in. I love, though, that after they capture this barbarian castle, he's got not one, but two of his men that are looking over his shoulder, trying to photobomb him. Very funny. And look, again, it's mashed potatoes, but the further away you get from this Game Boy Color version, the easier you can tell that, yes, indeed, this is Sir Gallant. Folks, we've got Gwenneth the Knight here. Kind of interesting. I like Gwenneth the Knight. She's a fun-looking hero. She doesn't appear anywhere else at any other point in time. There's two things here I want to point out. Number one, this Warlock Castle, this is my vibe. I believe that that's the same castle, not a one-to-one like we found in the Sir Gallant portrait, but I believe that this is the same sort of a deal, just with an artist's rendering. It's definitely in the same style, it's definitely in the same color palette for these choices, and then there's trees in the background here. Sure, fine, all that is good and well, but also worth noting that there's a little bit of an interesting issue here with the portrait that I had. When I first click and I look at here, it's not level. Like the eyes, just not level. One is definitely one pixel up a little bit too high. And what we're going to see in a future portrait is that this is actually a very purposeful choice for the eyes being a little bit off-centered, so that way you get some depth and things like that. That is actually useful, that's important, that's a purposeful choice, but it fails in this case because the nose is completely forward-facing. And if the nose is completely forward-facing, then by trying to offset the eyes, you're gonna mess up the depth and the illusion of the portrait. This seems like maybe one of those chances. I hope that the original artist doesn't watch this video and think that I'm just trashing on you. It looks great, it looks fine, but I feel like because of the forward-facing nose, that the depth issue there doesn't quite work. and we'll come back to this when I find Ruby the Knight, so I can show you that portrait in just a moment. Oh, we'll do it right now. Ruby the Knight. Ruby the Knight, same exact deal. If you try and do this straight across line, one eye is lower, one eye is higher, right? But the nose is not forward facing. It's not a straight on deal. It's kind of edged to the side. And so therefore this portrait of Ruby the Knight works way better, I believe. Looks like there's a ship in the background for Ruby the Knight. It looks like there is some sort of either cave or some of the structure that she is just hanging out in the mouth of. And very interesting to note, I really like the streaks in her hair. Not often do I actually get to notice the streaks of color in her hair. Browns, blues, purples, teals. Yeah, she's a pretty fancy lady, not to mention she's got this really nice jewelry. I really do enjoy the portrait of Ruby the Knight, but I don't really take a look at it all that often because from here, I just see, oh, crown and this and that. But the more you look, the more you see with her. Let's go back where I was originally going to go, and let's go here to Tyro. Now, Tyro is interesting because he's maybe the first person, the first hero that appears in Might and Magic and Heroes of Might and Magic. So as much as possible, I tried to make sure that I wasn't skipping over anybody that appears in Might and Magic and is also in Heroes 2. But Tyro absolutely is in Might and Magic. Here in Might and Magic, he is a half orc. Here in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, he's more of an ogre. This portrait that we see here, this is absolutely, definitely more closely related to the ogres that you find in Heroes of Might and Magic 1. In fact, that's been my working theory my entire life, is that Tyro is at least half ogre, if not full ogre, but he does hang out with the knights. This portrait, this definitely looks more orc-ish, but still, this has definitely got to be the same Tyro. Just missing an eye, maybe not, maybe yes, maybe no. They fleshed out his hair a little bit more. He got a haircut in Heroes of Might and Magic 1. Here in Heroes 2, he's a little bit more filled out. This is one of those cases where they also softened some certain aspects of him. If you're looking over here, there's this section right there, these little streaks there, and it's not present over here. And so by removing these extra little bits of shock relief onto the face, you change the entire way that the face is presented. I think that this was an excellent choice. He's already got the sharp eyebrows. He's already got the beard and the mustache that's kind of pointing in this area. It's already drawing everything to the center of his nose and to the center of his face already. You don't need this extra little bit just drawing more attention to that section, I don't believe. I don't really know what this is. I don't know what exactly the charm is in the middle of his forehead. If there's some lore there that you are aware of, please let me know. And this is the first time I believe that we find a background that I say to myself, look, this has to be from Might and Magic. The background here, it has to be from the other game. They ported it over and they just used it because they didn't want to take the time to make more art assets, but I can't find it. I watched about 2 hours of somebody playing Might and Magic 3 on ×2 speed on YouTube, trying to find some of these different backgrounds. I could not find this one. If you are a Might and Magic aficionado, please let me know what this background is. It's clearly the moon here, and we know that because from the Game Boy edition, it was so important to them that they included the moon and such that it made it in. It made it in. But where it comes from, I don't know. Moving on, we got Ambrose the Knight. Ambrose is interesting because he also appears in Might and Magic here. He is the Queen's Knight. He's trying to tame a griffin, and you eventually use that griffin to fly into a castle. They absolutely overhauled his helmet. When it's for the Ambrose the Knight in Heroes 2, you can clearly see that, number one, they gave his armor a very, very meaningful upgrade. It's much more fleshed out. It looks much more decorative. This almost looks like a little bit of a cape. This is clearly armor, so the shading and also the detail work here makes this much more armorish. And then with the helmet here, it's clear what's actually going on. These two holes, what's going on there? Are those your eye holes? When you pull down your helmet, it should be, what, you're just leaving your cheeks exposed to whatever? Tough to say what's going on here with this helmet, although that is the same helmet that's being worn over here, right? Helmet, it's the same one. But in Heroes 2, they actually fixed it so that way you can tell, oh, this is the ventilation, so that way the helmet can be pulled down and he can breathe while he looks through this slit in the eyes. So very interesting there. And then also in the background, folks, is this a volcano? Is Ambrose hanging out with an ocean between him and this island, and maybe this island has a volcano going off. Looks like there's lava running down, trickling into the ocean. Maybe this is steam coming up from the ocean there, and then the sparks and fire shooting out. We're going to have another hero that we're going to come back to in a little bit and take a look and see if maybe there's some other explanation, or if maybe we have found something interesting. This guy pissed off the fire god, and now the lava is coming in pretty quick. Moving on, we've got Maximus. Now, I actually started off in this case the original portrait, the next iteration from Heroes 1, and then here in Heroes 2. So Maximus also appears in the Might and Magic series, and he's done nothing but glow up and get better every single time. From 1 to 2, you got these nice spikes on his helm. From 2 to 3, they actually gave him shoulders instead of just having this sort of pattern there to mimic the chainmail. And he's gotten rid of the golden sort of filigree that makes him really easy to spot from far away, but he has traded that in for something, again, sort of like with Ambrose, where Ambrose can pull down the face mask. I think that that's what's also going on here, so that way this hero can blend in with the human knights that he seeks to serve around and lead. The problem with him is that he is an evil half-orc knight in the Might and Magic series. Evil half-orc knight, but evil and knight, okay, I get the knight part, but he's always looked much more goblin-y to me. Half-orc, sure, I can buy half-orc over here, I can maybe even buy half-orc over here. This looks too much like a goblin for me to think that this is an orc. You tell me what you think here, but this definitely looks more orcish to me than anything. Moving on, we've got Dimmitri. Dimmitri is kind of nifty because his facial features, they decided that he was too wide. They decided that he looked too much like a frog, and so they took his features and they just kind of squished him a little bit more to the center. Not by much, but just by enough. His mouth is a couple of pixels closer together, and that gives him more of a, maybe more of a pretty boy look. He looks a little bit more focused, a little bit less dense, I would say. And while they didn't change his wardrobe, and they didn't change his hair, and they didn't change his earrings or anything like that, really, they just kind of squished his face in a little bit, they did give him a really nifty background. Again, from Might and Magic, somebody else needs to tell me, but I think it's pretty clear. If I zoom in too close, you can't really tell what's going on, but it looks like this is a wall behind him, and then defenders on the wall. It looks like this is clearly a ladder with people trying to scale the wall. There's a battle going on behind Dimmitri, and he almost looks a little bit scared that's happening there. When you zoom out, I think you get a little bit of a clearer picture at what I'm trying to get at here. But yeah, there's definitely a battle going on there. It does not correlate to anything I have found in Heroes of Might and Magic up to this point. So again, I'm hoping this actually from Might and Magic and not Heroes of Might and Magic. The Thundax is kind of interesting here. I'm going to remove that for just 1 second. It's just a little bit of a color correction from 1 to 2, and in fact, whereas in previous portraits they gave more depth and they gave more details from Heroes 1 to Heroes 2, the more details kind of fleshed out the hero a bit more, kind of like Ambrose, right? Kind of like with Ambrose, and they gave him a little bit extra, right? Here they softened him, similar to what they did with Lord Kilburn. More shadows, and they take away the shadows and they kind of soften him up a little bit here. I think that they did the same thing with Thundax. He's actually got less details, which is kind of strange as a choice because, sure, Lord Kilburn being a little bit friendlier, yeah, as a knight, I could see that. But as a bloodthirsty barbarian, you would think that Thundax doesn't need to be softened. He's already pretty cool just the way he is. His background is clearly from the Heroes of Might and Magic 1 background here, and I already kind of spoiled it, but when I click this portrait, you can see exactly where he's supposed to fit in. I did theorize in the previous video that I'm not actually showing because, again, nobody's got 45 minutes to talk about these portraits. I'm sorry. Maybe you're wishing FixFox slow down. I would actually like to look at these portraits a little bit closer, but here you can see the portrait from Heroes of Might and Magic 1 with this portrait from Heroes 2. It's very clear that this is there, this is there. But I was theorizing and wondering, was this portrait in Heroes 2 taken from the original or from the secondary portrait? Or from the secondary background? And here's what I mean. Clearly, if I'm to like look at just this corner here in the dirt, the corner and the dirt is very different. the sky background is very different. This hero from Heroes of Might and Magic 1, the sky background is clearly correct here, whereas here they've added that, they've changed that, they've made some additions there, and I think that they've even made some additions to the background. They changed the shading, they changed the shape of the mountain, shading on the mountain. Yeah, they made some changes in Heroes 2, but I say to myself, well, why would you do that? Why would you go out of your way to make that adjustment? I can't really tell you, but I almost wonder if this original version, they just went with this, and then maybe they were going to make an updated portrait down the road. Maybe they were going to make this barbarian background, they were going to give it a second pass, and they decided to do so. Or maybe just because it was Heroes 2, they had a little bit of extra time to work on the art assets. I don't know. Tough to say. Oh, Game Boy version looks nothing like you. Welcome to Kelzen the Barbarian. Fix Fox, who the heck is Kelzen the Barbarian? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Kelzen is a human barbarian from Heroes of Might and Magic 1, but he is the only hero, insofar as I'm aware, that is named one thing in the first Heroes and something different in Heroes 2. Yep. Kelzen and Phineas are the same person, and don't try and tell me that this is somebody different. There's absolutely no changes. From Heroes 1 to Heroes 2, there are no changes in the portrait. Nothing in the background, nothing in the armor, maybe a little bit of, again, kind of color correction, but I don't even think that the color correction's that big of a deal. I think that there might be some artifacts from the ripping process going from Heroes 1 to Heroes 2. I really think that that's what a lot of the color correction in this case kind of looks like. The Thundax and some of the other ones, I think there were some purposeful choices there, but here, this looks like it was maybe just part of the ripping process to get this little bit of information there. So, Kelzen, Phineas, whatever you want to be called, sir, I see you, and I'm moving on away from you onto the next person. And the next person's actually going to be Josh. So, it's pretty clear to me, this Heroes of Might and Magic 1 portrait, Heroes of Might and Magic 2 portrait, again, color correction or some of the artwork, it's the same basic guy, but there's only one stream in this barbarian town from Heroes of Might and Magic 1. And if you look at the road, and if you look at the river, I think it's pretty clear where our friend Josh is supposed to fit in this town. Although you got to get rid of this, what is this? Thieves Guild or whatever that is, I suppose. Whatever it is, you have to get rid of this so that way you can actually see it. Hold on. Did I get a really bad background? What is a pikeman doing in a barbarian castle? I'm very confused. I don't know where I got this image from. No, I got it from my version. I ripped it from my version of Heroes 1. Strange. Okay, on to something else. Let's go on to Crag Hack. Crag Hack from portrait of 1 to 2. There are some minor differences. It actually looks a lot bigger of a difference when you look at these portraits in game. First off, the little medal, that looks a little bit more detail from Heroes 2. Definitely more detail in the beard. Just a couple of extra dark pixels makes the beard turn out much differently. The lower lip is much bigger in the Heroes 2 version. You just added, again, 1 or 2 extra pixels to lengthen out that lip, and he's still got that weird underbite that you got, like a weird looking bulldog, just mean dogging you, just mad dogging you. I love it. Love it very much. A little bit more details around the eyes, but this is definitely Crag Hack from one to the other. Again, this is a time and a place where I wonder if you're looking at the background, is that from something else? Tough to say. I don't really know, but he's got a little bit more of a outline here in Heroes 1 than he actually does in Heroes 2. And then as he went on from Heroes 1 and 2 into 3 and 4 and so on, definitely had some changes, definitely had some iterations. These little sort of horns, yeah, I'm glad that Future Art Direction recognized an opportunity to do even more with that. Worth noting, the Crag Hack does appear in Might and Magic. He appears as a playable character here. If you're to pull this up, look, if for no other reason than the beard, and if for no other reason than the gems, and this sort of helmet sort of a deal, it's pretty clear that this is definitely the same Crag Hack, name included. This is Crag Hack, but here in Might and Magic, he is in fact a dwarf barbarian. And being a dwarf barbarian, now that's pretty interesting to me, because there's no indication in the other Heroes versions that he has anything like that. Just a little bit of a surprise there. Maybe you're not as surprised as me, but this seems like one of those one-offs where the continuity doesn't quite match up. Going on to, it looks like it's going to be, all right, it's going to be Jezebel. Jezebel is interesting to me for this reason. So Jezebel, I read somewhere, and I don't know where I read this, but I read this somewhere. Jezebel is actually not supposed to be a barbarian. That's what someone theorized online. I don't know who it was. I don't know where it was, but somebody theorized that Jezebel is actually supposed to be a wizard. You look at Marini, who is a wizard in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and you look at Jezebel, and they've got the same basic skin tone sort of thing going. I threw in Zam or Zam because he's the same sort of purplish steel, but I gotta tell you, if you look at these heroes here, these two heroes look closer together than Jezebel does because of the eyes. These heroes have like cat-like or snake-like eyes with the vertical pupils, and Jezebel has these really rounded sort of eyes, like purposefully rounded. Nothing about that is snake-like or evil in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, if you just get rid of this little horn here that's a part of her headdress, I think that she absolutely looks more like a wizard than anything. That just seems more correct to me. There's a little bit of face paint, but so be it. So maybe there is some truth to that theory. I don't know, again, where that originated from, but wouldn't that be interesting if they just made a few too many portraits for the wizards and not enough for the barbarians, and they said, let's repurpose this one hero from one to the other. By the way, I included Yogg here because he's a different color as well than the normal flesh colored. And it was interesting that Yogg, of course, later, by the time Heroes of Might and Magic 3 came around, Yogg was a barbarian whose mother was a genie, right? And that's where he got his skin tone from. A lot of artwork and a lot of storytelling can happen after the fact there, I'm sure, but still, just something worth noting. Purple, bluish. Are you a genie, Jezebel? Are you a genie? What is the relevance of the purple skin? Are you in fact like dark elves? And I just don't know how this works. If that's the case, then we might have a dark elf, barbarian, wizard, and necromancer. That would be kind of interesting. Okay, we're on to Jacqueline. I mentioned earlier with Ambrose, he's got the volcano in the background. I think it's a volcano. Is this a Cyclops tower? Or is that a volcano that's not yet erupted? Ah, that's the question. I don't know the answer to that, but that's kind of interesting to think for our friend Jacqueline the Barbarian. Worth noting, there's something wrong with her. Now, the blue face paint is really cool. There's no problems there. But as you can see, this is the skin color tones that we have for Ambrose, right? That's like his skin tone colors that we have. Maybe some darker stuff, but that's flesh colored. And then this is Jacqueline. She's got this bright yellow stuff. She's got jaundice. She's got liver failure. She's got some major issues. She's covering up her actual face with the face paint, so that way she looks normal. But no, gal, unless you are some sort of race that I am heretofore unaware of in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, like if this is some sort of elf, or if this is some sort of, I don't know what, if you're not humanoid or whatever to explain that away, yeah, you got some major issues there. Otherwise, looks good. Looks good. Moving on to the man, the myth, the legend. Maybe not a legend in the same way that maybe Crag Hack is, but folks, this is very interesting. This is Aragon the Barbarian on the left, and this is Aragon the Barbarian on the right. In both instances, the wolf head stays the exact same with a little bit of additional bits fleshed out over here, but this is supposed to be the same character. I think that this portrait and this change in portrait style from 1 to 2, I think that this highlights the difference in art style from 1 to 2 very well and very succinctly. Here's Might and Magic 1, it's very much cartoony, and it looks fine, but when you compare it to the hero on the right, Aragon gets much more serious, he gets much more grounded in reality, more than just, oh, he grew up into this, stern-chinned barbarian. This just feels like a shift in tone. The art style shifted in tone in a very massive way, and somehow this portrait could not exist in Heroes 2 and still keep that tone. It could not keep that flavor, and therefore the rewrite was necessary. And when you consider the differences between Heroes 1 and Heroes 3, Heroes 2 really does fall somewhere in the middle between the two of them, with the more realistic style that you find in Heroes 3 and away from the cartooniness that you find in Heroes 1. Heroes 2 really does strike the balance between both of those games. So Aragon is one of the two heroes that do change their portraits noticeably. The other one is, of course, going to be Luna. We will take a look at that in a little bit. On to Sabu. Sabu does have a little bit of a background. Again, I want to see this background. I'm sure that it's from something else. It feels like a dungeon crawler sort of background. Somebody please help me out. Go and find this background in Might and Magic and let me know what game it's from, where it's from, because maybe an artist just came up with this, but it seems like it should belong in a dungeon crawler. Otherwise, they actually took a couple of years off of Sabu from 1 to 2. I think that this one, he just looks very youthful, very excited, ready to go. And yeah, the armor has stayed the same pretty much from 1 to the other. No other major changes, but not too bad of a good looking hero. If you're trying to look at the Game Boy Color version, by the way, you do have to zoom way out to kind of see what's going on there. But oh boy, that pixel art does not look so good from afar on the Game Boy Color version. Okay, we are now into Atlas. Atlas had a really nice pickup from 1 to 2. Here in Heroes 2, he got a little bit of extra armor. He kept his main features, which are his hair, his kind of thicker face sort of a deal. But he also picked up this interesting background, these sort of pagodas in the back, this Eastern inspired architecture. And I didn't really think too much of it until I was actually snooping around and I found this character also named Atlas from Heroes of Might and Magic. What is that, 6? And this is clearly the same Atlas, right? Like, this is like the rounded face and the top with the hair and the stuff. Like, and he's a fighter. This is the guy. This is him. Like, there's no doubt about it. And they indicate that he's a samurai. So the Eastern inspired architecture, I wouldn't have thought that he was from the East, but I guess that if he's a samurai, maybe he's Japanese. In this world of Enroth, yeah, I guess that he's that's what he is. So from these two portraits, I wouldn't have thought that, but this one, it kind of more accentuates that for me. That's just kind of what I'm seeing. Tell me if you feel like I'm right. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I'm open to it all. Okay. On to Astra the Sorceress. Astra does appear in Might and Magic. This was her very first portrait. Ta-da! Now, what is she? She's blue-haired. She's got these sort of star earrings and jewelry there. They kept that jewelry. They kept the blue hair. And a little bit of a weird choice here, but they decided to accentuate the corner of her eyes with one single pixel of red, which now, good luck stopping seeing that. When they got to Heroes 2, they did take that out. Very, very good. The eye change is going to be useful because it looks better. Although this might appear a little bit more real to life, a little bit more true to life in the way that these eyes are done. There's going to be another hero down the road in a little bit that we're going to talk about, the eye changes and how that might get away from the realism a little bit. It might be a little bit more cartoony, a little bit more doe-eyed for these female heroes. But overall, it's a good art direction because it looks better. I think it does look better. Worth noting that I believe that this background has some real relevance. This looks like hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics are interesting because there is an artifact in Heroes of Might and Magic 2 that reads as such: after rescuing a sorceress from a cursed tomb, she rewards your heroism with an exquisite jeweled necklace. A cursed tomb? Hieroglyphs? Do you think that Astra here is the hero that gave us this +4 to our spell power? That's just kind of nifty for me to think. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's my headcanon. I've said it a couple times on stream. I'm going to continue to say it because I just believe it. And plus, look at the portrait. She looks pissed. She looks like she just got out of this tomb, just got released. She's like, here, take the dang necklace. I don't care. You know, I'm going to go get a hamburger. I'm mad. I'm going to go catch up on my email, whatever the case is. I'm still going to believe that this is the case, that this is, again, the same Astra, and that she's been locked in a tomb for a long time. Maybe there's some new information. I don't know. Maybe somebody who's good at Might and Magic, they're going to let me know about some lore that I'm unaware of at this point. On to Natasha. Natasha looks way better in Heroes 2. No ifs, ands, or buts. all the information, all of the readability stays the same. She just looks better. First off, they gave her lips. In Heroes 1, she didn't even have any lips. The simple addition to making sure that we know where your mouth is, that was just a really good choice. Adding a couple of extra darker pixels to kind of accentuate some of these features, and then once again kind of pulling back on these shadows so that way it's a little bit more well-rounded. Just nice upgrade. The backdrop is kind of interesting to me. There's a window, there's this kind of doorway here. So once again, the sorceresses, they're inside generally. Either the hero is inside and they've got this kind of frame around them that indicates that they're inside, or they're right by the sea. And in this case, Natasha, she likes to be inside. She does not like to use her advanced navigation. Troyanne got a big glow up. First off, look at the little details, just the little individual pixels that really highlighted her crown and her earrings here. Do note that they added the beauty mark and they really redid the lips, and they made that a bit more easy to read. In general, they even added highlights and other things that just really help the readability of these pictures from afar. The further out you go, which one has more details? Clearly the one on the right. And I'm always amazed at how good pixel artists can do in making sure that you can still tell from afar what's going on. But this one clearly just looks more, the art style change. Cartoony versus, yeah, it's definitely cartoony, but it's more sharp and a little bit more true to life. So Troyanne, I've looked, I feel like she should have some basis in Might and Magic. I didn't see any. Let me know if I'm wrong. All right, Vatanya had a nice glow up. So she's clearly an elf because of her pointed ears. Interesting to note though that she's got not one but 2 points in her ears. I thought that was kind of interesting. Kind of interesting that she went from green eyebrows in Heroes 1 into brown eyebrows in Heroes 2. The background portrait is really nice, although you kind of lose her a little bit in the greenery of the background with her green hair. Thank goodness they actually did kind of flesh out her hair a little bit more, and they turned this from bottom swoop into a swoop up. So she actually got a fairly big redesign. The lips, she goes from really angry and upset into just this look of like shock and surprise. So a big change on that part for her. Worth noting that she is going to be in Olden Era. This is the same Vatanya. It looks like they dropped that second ear point. It does not look like they really did that, but they kept her iconic nose to ear jewelry, which it just seems like a bad idea. What if somebody grabs it and then they rip out your earring and your nose ring at the same time? Tactically, that just seems like a bad idea. But who am I to tell a sorceress, an elf, what to do with herself? On to Rebecca. Rebecca had a nice glow up. Looks much more feminine in the right hand side. Looks good. Really, it's interesting. From here you can't tell, but as you get closer you can see that this was all gray and white. Her elaborate sort of headdress for Rebecca, it's all gray and white. You look on the right hand side, they actually have this color in the background. So it's just that little bit of extra color there. I don't think it even makes that big of a difference. Not that big of a difference, but still it's enough. I think that because my background, I changed it for the first attempt at this video, it doesn't quite maybe stand out as much, but when it's just black, or rather dark blue, I think that you can tell the sort of teal coloring a little bit more. That does make some meaningful difference there. As far as Rebecca's background portrait goes, I do like looks like cherry blossom trees in the back. Looks like there's some sort of architecture in the back, maybe like a tall tower. And what this other thing is closer to the foreground than the trees and then the thing here, I can't really tell you what that is. You're gonna maybe have to let me know. It almost looks like some sort of print that you would find on a tapestry, but then it ends in a really weird way, just sort of blends into whatever else is there. I don't know what's going on there. It's definitely not lava or something like that, but if you have any ideas about what that backdrop is and what it is, let me know. There is a Rebecca that appears in Might and Magic. I don't believe it's the same one. The hair looks the same. That's about all I can say. Green eyes, green eyes. I mean, seriously, look, green eyes, dark hair. So I mean, it's I don't know, maybe it's more likely than not that this is the same hero. it just feels off enough. There's not enough distinguishing makeup. There's not enough distinguishing jewelry to make me believe it. And if this is the same one, this is a Rebecca that's equipped with a cudgel, scale armor, leather boots, and such. Kind of interesting. On to Gem the Sorceress. Wow, she got a big upgrade from 1 to 2. So when we look at 1, just very washed out. Her eyes, they just don't capture you. Heroes 2, she becomes alive. The backdrop, I suppose that might help a little bit. It provides just this little bit of framing. It makes it feel like, with the way that the portrait is sitting and the way that she is sitting in this room, that she is like facing forward and then she's turning a little bit to see you. She's almost got that Mona Lisa smile. Almost looks like the famous artwork from Da Vinci. And yeah, this is my favorite iteration of Gem. I don't love this one from Heroes 3. I don't love this one from Heroes 3. This one from Heroes 4, the top doesn't even look like, it looks like she's bald. I don't see any texture there, and so therefore she looks like she's bald. But this one from Heroes 2, well, I like this one from Heroes 2. I know what I like, and that's it. On to Ariel the Sorceress. Ariel is pretty interesting to me because it's not until I look at the Heroes 1 portrait that I realize how much I kind of lose out on who Ariel is, because the background almost fades into the main part of who Ariel is. Sure, you've got this like facial structure here and a little bit of purple there to indicate that it's like a hood, but for some reason when I read this from afar, I've always read this sort of rose garden and like rose and thorns in the background. I've always read that as just being part of the hero herself, and it's not. It's actually part of the background. But it's not until I see its absence in Heroes 1 that I realize that, oh wait, hold on, no, this is Ariel. And then the backdrop kind of takes over in a way that almost makes it look like she's just got some extra floral patterning in her decorations of herself. Worth noting that this is the Celestial Necklace of Bliss from Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Is this the same necklace? It's just possible enough, because in both sides there's a little bit extra stuff there. Big circle-ish thing and a little bit of maybe kind of wingish sort of deal here. It's close enough that I thought I would mention it. I don't necessarily think that Ariel the Sorceress has the Necklace of Bliss, but still, I thought I was interesting enough to just sort of notice that. Once again, mashed potatoes. That's Ariel. You can tell. And then Carlon. Tell you what, the Carlon on the left from Heroes 1 to the Heroes 2 Carlon, this is going back to that conversation about the doe eyes. This looks maybe a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more maybe true to life. This looks more stylized. This looks a little bit more cartoony, and again, sort of these doe eyes, but you can't argue with the results. Carlon in Heroes 2 looks better than the Carlon in Heroes 1, in my opinion. Maybe you disagree. This one looks like it's a dental assistant. Maybe it's the teeth doing that for me. And this one on the right looks like mild supermodel vibes. I don't know. Worth noting that they added some extra shoulder to Carlon in Heroes 2. This one, it feels like she's much skinnier, much smaller, and even though she's kind of tilted to the side, so you're not getting the full width of her shoulders, it just looks like she's a little bit more of a timid, shy girl here on the left than she is here on the right. On the right, she looks like she's much more here. She's much more present, and everybody's saying, oh, somebody's here. Yep, she's here because she's just takes up more space. Worth noting that there is not a Carlon that appears in Might and Magic, but there is a Carlana, and Carlana is a cleric, and she's near her brother, the wizard Thalagar. What in the heck? Oh, look, this is Carlana. What do we think, folks? What do we think? The headdress, even the earrings, the makeup, the blue and black hair. This is totally Carlon, but for Might and Magic, it was Carlana. And this gives us maybe some indication of the lore that we otherwise would have missed out on. This Carlana is related to Thalagar. Yes, the warlock hero from Heroes 2 and 1. I love that. I think that's so cool that because we're doing this little bit of extra looking here, we got more information about these heroes of Might and Magic than we otherwise would have had. So I love that. Love it. Love it a lot. Alrighty. Whoops, don't do that. We're not done yet. Because we got Luna. Luna is kind of like, oh, what's his name? Aragon. Luna has had major portrait overhaul changes. This one, very cartoony. This one needs to put down the bronzer. Yeah, lady, blonde, red, brunette, what are you doing? Luna has no idea who she is. She just doesn't have this identity. I guess that she likes fire, but I gotta tell you two things. So number one, once again, this is a backdrop that I feel like must come from Might and Magic 5 because this tower looks very futuristic. There's something about it that just screams to me that it is futuristic in some way, shape, or form. And I hope you can tell me where it's from. And number two, look at this backdrop right here. Look how little space this artist had to work with in order to convey that there is a creek or a river, and there are mountains, and there's two separate mountains. And so this one's in the foreground, this one's in the background. There's this sort of deserty and beach sort of terrain to the side. And then there's these trees to the foreground. Look, if you back off, you can actually see how beautiful this is. If you get too close, you kind of lose a sense for how good this background is. This is one of the best pixel art backgrounds I've ever seen in my life, because remember, this is like tiny. These are tiny. These are like maybe what, 150 pixels by 150 pixels? I don't actually know. I'm gonna have to pull up the original Spriters sort of thing to really figure out exactly how many pixels these are originally. Let me find it. I'm gonna find it right now because I don't got time to not get answers. Heroes 1 portraits. No, let's just go Heroes portraits. Yeah, how many pixels are these originally? 101 by 94. Yeah, so I mean, with that such small space, amazing that you're able to get that much detail into that small of a space. Maybe it's just because I'm not an artist and so I don't understand, but oof, very impressive insofar as I'm concerned. And folks, that will take us to the end of part 1, where we did cover the Knights, the Barbarians, and the Sorceresses. We still have the Necromancers, the Wizards, and the Warlocks to go, not to mention the heroes that you find from the Price of Loyalty campaign and the special portraits that you will find from the campaigns in Heroes of Might and Magic 1. You know, your Rolands, your Archibalds, your Sister Elizas, your Corligons, your Ivans, and so on and so forth. So I do want to get to those soon, but for now, this video has already gotten long enough. I hope that this was interesting for you to take a look at some of these heroes and just kind of see who they are and where they come from, what they're about, what they do, and maybe some of the interesting details that have been packed into these portraits. Folks, I love Heroes of Might and Magic 2. It's a wonderful game. It obviously took a lot of effort from a lot of great people to make this thing come together so well, and I hope that we can continue to enjoy this game, because if for no other reason than the art stands up so very well, it is beautiful to look at, and it is never makes me sad to do so. So do me a huge favor, until I see you next time, please take very good care of yourselves. So look after you, look after your friends, look after your family. Until I see you next time, just know that my name is Fix Fox, and I'll be back with part 2 as soon as I can. Take good care. Bye-bye.